Welcome back to PR After Hours. I'm your host, Alex Greenwood, bringing you your weekly cocktail of PR and marketing tips that will help you and your business. Stick around, we'll get started right after these messages. Hello, listeners. It's me, Alex, from PR After Hours. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. And I wanted to talk to you just for a moment about the way I get this show right into your earbuds every week. It's because I use Anchor FM. Now, I've told you previously that I've been podcasting since 2006, back when we used stone knives and bear skins and a couple of Dixie cups and string. Anchor FM has really streamlined this and made it simpler for people who don't know the first thing about setting up a podcast or don't have, time to learn all the pro tools and stuff, because it's all right here. First thing it's important to know is it's free. There are certain tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. That's huge. Distribution is a big pain in the butt, to be honest with you, so it's really great Anchor FM can do that for you, and you're not paying hosting fees. That adds up every month. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place, so download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started, and be sure to join me in the virtual cocktail lounge on PR After Hours. Being in PR the past 20 years or so, as I have been, I've seen a lot of trends come and go. I am definitely living through a seismic shift, I think, in the way brands and companies and organizations and individuals seek to build awareness of their selves, their products, etc. And I think it's always good to check in with an industry leader to talk about where PR is now, where it appears to be heading, and maybe a few other little things if he got a moment or two. But that's why I'm glad to have Ed Zitron here. He's the CEO and founder of EZPR, a national media relations firm based in San Francisco, Boston, and Portland. They focus on industry-leading media relations for tech, primarily B2B, B2C, consumer tech, enterprise, SaaS, DevOps, blockchain, crypto companies, startups, app developers, and more, with clients including Skydio, SmartNews, Flexa, all these others. It's really great stuff here. And he's been published in Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, Eurogamer, so many other publications. But rather than just read off this whole list of things that he does, let's talk to Ed and find out what he thinks about stuff. Ed, welcome to the virtual lounge.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. I trust you are doing well and keeping your head above water in these challenging times.
Honestly, I'm finding this year a lot easier than 2019 and 2020, so I'll take that.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, you've been in PR for what, about 15, something like that?
About 12. Going to be 13 this year's.
What got you on? I'm just curious. Were you
boredom.
Something you always wanted to do?
Boredom. So what happened was I lived in London. I grew up there. And I grew to hate London in a way that I do not like it. I'm not a big fan of the people or the place, just a miserable, expensive place to live. Sorry, any listeners who love London. If you're thinking about moving, do not do that. Anyway, well, you can't right now. So I was extremely bored of that. I had the best job in the world. I was a video games journalist. I got to play video games, write about them. Unbelievably good job I walked away from because doing it in England was slowly killing me. So I read a PR book that I can't name, because if I do, I might libel someone. I read this book and I thought, this sounds great. And I applied to his PR firm and I got the job. And I thought PR is going to be this big, exciting, sexy thing where you do like press conferences and you work only with big clients. And I get to New York, a place I loved living in, and I'm immediately metaphorically hit by a truck. I think being hit by a real truck might have been less painful. And I get there and I'm just given this big list and I'm just told, call and email everyone on it. No guidance, no nothing. Just unbelievable. And I get there and I read other PR books and they all say the same thing. They're all talking about, oh yeah, well, you have to give clear counsel to your clients. And when you pitch the media wants to hear from you. Just a big fat lie. Just a big fat lie. And so I was honestly just annoyed the whole time. And then I got a particular client. It was an e-reader. And I had a few successes because there was a lot of pressure. It was like a boiler room. We just told you, got to pitch, got to get pitches, got to pitch, got to do this, got to pitch. And between the idea of just, it's quite hard to buy a gun in New York, so I couldn't shoot myself in the head. So I had to do the job instead. So I learned eventually that journalists would like you to read their stuff. I was not told this by my managers. They were too busy correcting the kinds of commas I used. I realized that, hey, pitching is terrible over the phone. Journalists hate you every time. They despise you. They think you're scum if you call them. So I realized that, and I went, okay, well, what next? And then I got this e-reader client. And at this point, I'd got some idea of media relations, but I was, like everyone else there, perpetually on the doorstep of being fired. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to send my pitch to my manager. They don't seem to know what they're talking about. So I just wrote 2 or 3 sentences about this e-reader. I said what it did. I said why it's good, why it's interesting, and I hit send. And like a minute later, I got a response from a journalist at Engadget. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Did it again with a few others. Wow, this is actually working. Then David Poe gets back to me with the New York Times. He's like, whoa. And I was like, huh. And then a very funny thing on the side happened when my manager claimed that she wrote the pitch. Ugh. And I said, actually, you didn't. You didn't. I didn't send you the pitch. You don't have it. You can't have it. Anyway, that was kind of when I realized, okay, this is the part of the industry I want to be in, because pitching the media is fun. This is a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. This is interesting. I do research into people's likes and dislikes, and I pitch them. And they seem happy with me. They seem genuinely happy with me. And so I kept doing that. And it was a lot easier this is like 2009. It was a hell of a lot easier back then. And then I moved to another agency who were great. They treated me really well. And I did more games focused stuff, but then business and tech stuff. And I just learned that the client was only one client, the journalist was the other. And so I just hung out with journalists instead of PR people. I do not get on with a lot of PR people just because of everything I say from my mouth. But also I have fairly publicly said that cold calling is assault and we need to stop doing it. And there are genuinely some PR people who take that very poorly. They don't like the idea that they can't cold call reporters. I don't understand. But also, to wrap it all back, I feel like PR people describe themselves and their jobs in this big, fancy, stupid way that is not necessary. We're conduits. I can speak. I know how to say words. We're conduits for the media. We're conduits for our clients. We are there to get both sides ready to talk to each other. And that's fine. But if you go on prdaily.com, and I think I am, by the way, one of the only people blocked by the PR Daily Twitter account. Now, that may be because I made fun of them for several years, but PR people love to describe themselves like PR Daily. They love to do this. They've just pages and pages of garbage, absolute trash, making our industry seem so important and so crazy complex when it isn't. And the problem that they're trying to fix here is it's difficult to just build relationships with people, and you can't really fake domain expertise. You can't fake being able to discuss a subject at length in detail. What you can do is pretend that writing documents and doing strategy, quotation marks, is a real job when you're just like cat litter. You're just moving little cat turds under the set so that you can hide the fact that you actually have nothing to add to a conversation. And you just are only good at keeping the client happy rather than doing something important. And what makes me really like, I can't stop. I just can't believe this. Currently, one of the top articles on PR Daily is 24 phrases gaslighters use against you, which is incredible because PR people have been trying to gaslight me for years. Every time I talk about media relations being important, they claim it isn't. Kiss my ass, PR Daily. Kiss my ass. But anyway, so long story short, people ultimately in this industry want to try and gussy up stuff that is not that important and get away from doing actual work because actual work requires them to understand and synthesize information in a way that I do not believe most PR people want to. I think they're capable of it. I do not think they want to, because it's too much work and it doesn't make them feel important. Anyway, that was a nice short answer.
And I don't know if I don't know, man. You should stop holding back, first of all.
Yeah, I that's it. The gloves are off. Next.
Okay, all right. Now, gloves being off, feel free to counterpunch at me. All right, I've been doing this line of work for about 27 years. Okay, now I'm going to tell you something I don't often say on this show, because maybe it's because I'm a little hidebound by the things you're talking about to a degree. I hate pitching, and you know why I hate pitching? Because I think it was burned into me from the time I was a journalist, just like you, until I switched over into PR, that you got to call. And I hate cold calling anybody for anything, because nobody wants to talk to anybody like in that situation, like you're talking about. You're right. I did the other day, I did have to do it for a local journalist, but I did it purely as a introductory call. And I just said, do you have 2 minutes? I pinged him first, sent him an email. Do you have 2 minutes for a quick intro? And he's like, yes, I have 2 minutes. Well, good news was I got on the phone with him, and I didn't apparently insult his intelligence. And we had a 15-minute call where I just told him about my client load and what I was doing, the stuff I pitch, and just said, look, I got nothing really to pitch to you. I just want you to know, if you need sources in these areas, give me a call locally. And he appreciated that. And that's good. Got a message from him the next day. He said, I'm not doing anything for about a month, but when it happens, I'll call you. So, Ed, did I do wrong?
No, it sounds like you actually did media relations. So I don't know the situation you're within, but I remember, so to drill down a little bit, and the gloves are off now, so I'm not going to be nice now. But in all seriousness, when I say what I'm saying here, God, that is an awful sentence. But a lot of people in PR believe what I'm saying is that media relations is the only thing in PR. I believe it is incredibly important. I've had a successful business through multiple economic downturns sold on media relations. I have never seen a client happy without media relations, ever. Even big clients, even these huge firms, the Edelmans, Webers in the world, have got to a point where they can do media relations they do a very uncomplex media relations in that they spam, and they are able to still get responses from journalists because the client is big enough. If you're EMC, if you're Dell, you're going to get, I don't actually know who they use agency-wise, you're going to get responses because you're that big.
Right.
What the problem is that, and I saw this a lot when I was growing up in PR, was people loathe knowledge and people loathe development. So I remember being told numerous occasions, "Oh, you're nerding out too much. You're learning too much," and it frustrated me because I wasn't even that in depth. But when I worked in games PR, there were people who genuinely were like, "Don't play too many games; it gets in the way." And it's just, it drove me insane, but it's very common with PR people, because what they think is that the only way you can get to a short, sharp message is by knowing less. If you have less words in your brain, you will use less words in a sentence. If you know too much, you'll be forced to get too much information down, which I can prove is wrong, because read any early PR professional's emails and there's like 500 words and too much information.
Right.
The problem is a lot of PR people have great memories, terrible synthesis. They don't know how to synthesize information into something clear. And that's because it's difficult. It's a difficult task. I'm not saying this is something easy to do, but it comes from a point where it is difficult to synthesize if you don't have in-depth knowledge of something, because you don't have the contextual analysis around you. Also, frankly, a lot of PR people just aren't that interested in reading. And I get it. Reading takes time. It's boring. Knowledge. I don't want to be a nerd. But in all seriousness, there are PR people that act like this. And you can only get so far if you kind of know a subject. And sure, I've had clients where I only kind of knew the subject. But guess what? The internet it's right there. You can read up on stuff. And if it's too complex, I have people I can ask. I'm working on a tax client right now. And guess what? I'm going to talk to my accountant about it because he's my mate. Guess what? You can know all sorts of interesting people. I just think that PR people and the industry at large doesn't like media relations because it's difficult and it's not something you can bullshit. You can't sit there and half it. You can't pretend you're good at media relations. You can if you have a huge client who anyone's going to cover. But even then, and I worked for a major gaming company that I cannot get into more detail on because of legal reasons, not because I did anything wrong, but because they don't like vendors talking. They had an internal media department and they've had agencies over the years. And they said they would get good PR, but not great PR. I placed a few really nice, meaningful consumer hits fairly easily. And they had a team of 15 people who'd never done it. They hadn't got morning shows. They hadn't got the LA Times. It was pathetic. And that's because I'm a gamer.
Right.
I'm a gamer, but I'm also able to act like a civilian. I can sit there and have a conversation with someone that is not down in the weeds. Okay, how do I min-max a particular setup in Destiny 2? How am I going to use Beloved, or am I going to bother what I'm going to use in Trials of Osiris? Like, you can get in the weeds with games depending on how you want me to. But the truth is, no one really needs to know that if there is a larger story. But you need that backing information so that you can drop down to levels of complexity. And I don't. It's a gargantuan task, but it's also not an impossible one. And well, it's too difficult, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to learn as little as I can to get by, which is human nature.
Yeah.
And then when they have trouble with the media, it's a totally separate problem, which is very simple. Very, very simple. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to talk. They write emails that sound like a robot wrote them, and not even a good, cool robot like Bender from Futurama. They sound like a procedurally generated press release.
Yeah.
It sucks. And it's so common. And I think that on some level, it was two things that cause it. One, the college system. I believe college teaches you to write in an awful, awful way. And two, middle management. Because what happens is young PR person comes in, writes a pitch, or is mentored in writing a pitch by a manager, a middle manager precisely, who doesn't pitch. And there's also a third thing that I believe a lot of PR people believe, that you should get a promotion in PR so that you can do less work. I really think that that's the thing, but that's a whole different podcast. But in all seriousness, I believe that the collegiate system plus just extremely poor management has created this problem in PR. Because if you write like you talk and you don't talk like a robot, you can write a pretty good pitch in like 120 words. Do it in 100 if you want. You can even go up to 150. And I think that they're scared. I think they're scared of sounding imperfect, which is fine. Everything's imperfect.
That's so good. I have had some recent success, just like you talking about tax. I used to have a tax client, my God. But I did learn, and funny you said that. One of my best friends is a CPA. Talk to him. He said, "Oh no, you're overthinking this. Here's what this means." Because what I have to do is boil this down, as I think you're saying, to the reporters I'm pitching. I have to boil it down to them in such a way that they can say, as soon as they read the 2 or 3 words or sentences I send them, yeah, I can see where my readers or my viewers or listeners would want this. But too oftentimes you get the cart before the horse, and you're like, let me explain what a tax attorney does. And that's not interesting to anybody, really. And you can try to sexy it up all you want. But I think what I'm hearing you say, and what I had some success with, was just getting it down to answering one question. When I talk to the reporter and when I think about their audience, is what's in it for me?
Or who cares?
Yeah, or who cares? But Ed, right? Tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that everybody, you will, won't you? I believe that everybody, when they're listening to anything, when somebody turns on this podcast and they're hearing the intro, they're like, what's in it for me to listen to this Ed guy?
Yeah.
Now they're going to be glad.
Why am I bothering?
Yeah. So that's what I try to do. And I've had more success basing my pitches on that than I have anything else, because I did a lot of the same shite that you said people are doing now, simply because I wanted to make sure that I was complete and that I was a one-stop shop. And what I had a friend who was in TV news for 16 years told me, who's best pitcher in the market here, Kansas City. He said, Alex, you are so busy trying to make a quilt, and they don't even care. You're trying to tell them how to make, how to make cotton, and they don't even care how to make cotton. They just want to know if the quilt's comfortable or not. And I'm like, wow.
You're completely right. And so 2 things. One, the major thing to remember if you're listening to this, you take away one thing. Anytime you pitch a report, there's a nexus of a few things going on. There is, how is this good for my readers? How is this going to get clicks? That second one, depending on the outlet, is important, not important. But also, it's mostly going to be important if they think literally no one will read it. But that comes to the third one, which is, how does this matter to the writer? Because, yes, obviously they're writing for the reader, but you want to try and match interest with interest. And in the case of, say, I don't know, whatever report you're going to, you need to make sure you understand that process. If it's, say, someone at TechCrunch, like, say, Ron Miller, writes a lot about enterprise, big data stuff, you need to read his stuff. And that's the magic of this. You can just go on their website and read their stuff.
Yeah.
And say, he told me. And they may still say no, and you need to graciously bow out. But I was talking to a producer from a major business network yesterday, and she was telling me with the pitch is, you need to, it's kind of like the conversation you had, you need to simplify it a bit. I, the producer in this case, need to go to pitch these stories, and I don't need to know what they can talk about. I need to know what they're going to say. I need to know how I would introduce this segment as coming up next, and I need to know their credentials and what their POV is. What is their point of view? Not they can talk to, but they will say roughly this. So if it is a stockbroker talking about Robinhood, their view is X, Y, Z. This is what they believe. They think Robinhood is good or bad for this reason, and give it to me in a sentence or two, and then make sure, and this is a really important one for producers, make sure you send it early, because in this case, in this producer's case, her day is pretty much locked up by about 10 a.m.
Yep.
And this comes down to just talking to the reporters. But a lot of it comes down to just make it easy on them. Make it easy on them, understand what they actually put on the screen, and even if you're giving them something new, try and relate it to something they've done already. Like, oh, I've got a crypto client and I don't do much crypto, but this guy has experience as a stockbroker and he sees these connections between the stock market and crypto. Might win, might not, but ultimately there needs to be this give and take and understanding of each other's information silos. You need to both be able to understand each other. Also, remember, it is not their job to put your stuff in the newspaper. It never has been, it never will be. And if it is, that sounds like it's illegal. Don't do that.
I think, and by the way, I've done some national work, but mostly I'm successful here in my little pond, right? And one of the reasons why is because I know everybody, and we're not like the 36th largest or 32nd largest media market. So it's not New York City. It's not the oceans you swim in, but
local PR is still crucial, and every client eventually wants local PR. Sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, this is what's great. When I have a client, like I had a fresh round of clients coming, it's all new. It's architects and green sustainable building clients who I had to learn about, which is fascinating stuff. But I've been pitching and having great success with my local people, because they're like, oh gosh, when did you start getting into this, Alex? We're not talking about blank, blank, and blank, which we used to talk to you about. I said, yeah. I said, well, everybody gives a crap about green building because guess what? Climate change, new administration, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So I am finding so much purchase with that. And, I'm doing, I think I'm building on a relationship, because there's a couple of things I do, and Ed, please step in here if you hear something, but I tell people all the time on this show, it's kind of like what you're talking about, do the work, help them out, think ahead. What are they going to need? Make sure it's there for them. But I do 2 things. I do that, and I don't waste their time. This is the thing that I think gets PR people a really bad name, is that not we, but a lot of them, we just fire out all these press releases that nobody's going to read, which clogs up their inbox. Or we do what you said, they just cold calling about stuff that's not even in their freaking beat. Or even if it is in their beat, you kind of act entitled to like 15 minutes of their time. You're not. They have a busy day, a hugely busy day. Now, what I always do is I call cold, which I rarely do, but I did the other day. I kind of let the guy know ahead of time. I said, do you mind if I call you about this and this? And he's like, brand new, blah, blah, blah. First thing he said, Ed, you know what he said?
Mhm.
Well, did you read my piece about sustainable building about 3 months ago? And I said, actually, yes, I thought it was great. I said, the only thing is I want to make sure you have a different perspective next time you write about it. And he was like, tell me more.
Yeah. And that is called media relations. Like, it's what you are doing and saying, you're agreeing with me. And a lot of PR people just don't make those connections. They would never ask a reporter before calling them. I've not cold called a reporter in 6 years. And that was a guy at Inc. who told me I could do it.
Yeah.
And I have not done it since. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is...
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
What I'm getting at, though, very basically, is a lot of PR people don't make the human connection. They don't get, I think at times, they don't get the next step. They don't understand that there's a human being, and they don't act like one because they've been taught to act otherwise. There is no reason to mail merge. There's zero reason. It's inefficient. It really is inefficient. The best case scenario is you're going to get one really good piece and like 7 bad ones, like 7 meaningless ones that you probably shouldn't even be bothering with anyway. And I think that PR people just need to take a step back and realize with anything media relations related, which is important, is they need to realize that there's a human being on the other end of the email, and that's a good thing, and it helps. Because guess what? If you actually have a conversation with someone, even if they say no, you still built a relationship. If you bow out gracefully when rejected, people remember that. People remember, they're a good person. And when you get a client that is, frankly, there are some that are easier than others.
Yes.
They will remember you and they will cover it, and then they'll be more willing to open your email in the future. When we all leave our houses again, we can actually have drinks with them and just have, like, if you're meeting a reporter, guess what? Go and have a chat with them. Literally, just chill out with them and don't talk work. And
don't pitch them.
Also, don't pitch them. If they ask you, if they say, all right, what are you working on? Tell them in short, if you feel like it. And if they don't, then don't. All you are doing is increasing the chances that they will open your email. That's it. That's your goal. That is it. And ultimately, that is the magic maker. And most of these people have all their articles online. You can just go and read them. It's just that easy.
Yeah, really. You know, there's an opportunity here locally, the local business journal. They do a quarterly breakfast with the staff. You can come have breakfast. It's like a buffet. Well, okay, they'll do it again when we get out of the pandemic, but you just pay like, I don't know, $15. You come in, you get your eggs, your bacon, whatever, you sit down and you can talk to everybody from the managing editor all the way down to every beat reporter. And I had other PR people in town. I was like, you going? Like, no, I don't think so. I was like, what is wrong with you? For $15 in an hour of your time, you get a meal and you get FaceTime with an editor who actually, or a reporter actually wants to hear your pitch. I don't know. I mean, I know that's not happening everywhere, but I just think that's like an opportunity you can't.
It is a missed God. It's just right there. You should not. It's insane to me that people would not take that opportunity. Every year at CES, usually, obviously not this year, we have a constant rolling open bar with a taco bar 5 days straight. It's a no pitch area, no pitching at all. Right. We actually physically enforce that. We actually physically enforce it. We will kick people out. It sounds mean, but it's good. But we get journalists in there and we just talk to them and get to know them, because in most cases, most people just tell you how they are just by talking to you.
Right.
And it's that simple. I don't know. Maybe I'm just confused because I've done this for so long.
But I don't think you're confused at all.
Yeah, it's just, it's frustrating to me. Because it shouldn't be this complex.
Right. Well, what I love about but besides being refreshingly candid, by the way, is I just like hearing you say something that I've heard my whole career about why I have had a lot of my successes. Alex, you're easy to talk to. Alex, you don't bullshit me. Alex, you don't bug me with something that you know is of no use to me. You know what I mean? You're just being a decent guy or gal. And that pays off so much. Ed, I mean, I've kept you a long time here. I'd love to let you wrap up with whatever you'd like about EZPR, though.
We're a national media relations and tech firm. I think that PR people are probably going to hear this and get annoyed at me, and I don't really care. It's funny, and what a good thing to close on is this: is a lot of PR people, they get offended they get worried they'll offend a PR person. They get worried that, oh, if I scorn my industry, the PR people will let me out. This is not what happens. PR people, you might not be so welcome at the PRSA, but no one cares. No one cares about the PRSA except the PRSA. No one cares about the PR clubs. The only people that actually matter are your clients and the reporters. If PR people won't have you in their little clubs where they all hold hands and burp, I don't know if I really care. I refuse to join the PRSA because I see no value to it. And I find that PR people are terrified that, oh, if they stand out, if they look different from the norm, well, then they won't get a job in PR and, oh, they won't do this. Sure, if you are screaming the F word at the FBI account on Twitter at 3 a.m., that might be a problem. But being a regular human being is to your advantage. And that's really what I can wrap up on. That is where my success has come from, where I think other people's will as well.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Ed Zitron, CEO of EZPR, which is ez-pr.com. And I will have a link in the show notes. It actually
isn't. It's EZPR with no hyphen anymore.
Well,
several years now. Well, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm looking
it's fine. I have both. That's probably why.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, then I'll put both in the show. I'm kidding. I'll put the right one in the show notes.
Give them both. Why not?
but I love this media relations that actually works. So one last thing I'll say is, so if I get another national client, I had my last national client about a year ago, and sometimes when they needed the media relations, I didn't have the national contact. So a good PR guy like me can give you a call, and if the price is right, maybe we could work together. Is that
potentially? Yes, absolutely.
Very good. All right, it has been a blast. You are a breath of fresh air, my friend. Wish you all the best, and thanks for joining us here in the virtual lounge.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you know what that means? Looks like it's last call here at your virtual lounge for PR news, views, and interviews. Don't forget, you can ask me a question anytime. You can do it through our Twitter account, which is @HoursPR, or even better, you can send me a message vocally. I would love to hear your voice, and I'll answer it on the show. There's a link in the show notes. All you have to do is sign up through Anchor FM. It's free, doesn't take long, and you record your message. I get the message. I will play your audio. Just give me your first name and the city you live in, and then I will answer the question to the best of my ability right here on the show. Don't forget to, if you're enjoying this podcast, you can support it and help increase the frequency and value of the show. Just consider being a sponsor for your brand or your agency or just yourself because you're like, I like this show. Or just drop a few coins in the virtual tip jar. Either way, there's links in the show notes. Please check that out. All of that, of course, being in the show notes where you're listening right now or at prafterhours.com. I see that they're turning up the lights. Last call is over, and I've got to clean up this virtual lounge. And until next time, I'm Alex Greenwood, and you've been listening to PR After Hours on Anchor FM.
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. But have you been there, done that, and got the t-shirt? Now's your chance. If you are a big fan of the virtual lounge right here at PR After Hours, why don't you tell the world and take our spiffy logo and plaster it across your chest for the whole world to see? Well, for the whole world to see on Zoom or whenever you do finally get out of your house. The PR After Hours tee shows that you're an exclusive member of the virtual lounge. It's a cool, comfortable, ring-spun, soft cotton tee. We look for the best possible options we could go for in these t-shirts, and it's in a variety of colors. You can get them in dark heather gray, royal blue, storm, maroon, or good old-fashioned white. These are really comfortable shirts. We offer a premium unisex tee from extra small all the way to 4XL, and a women's slim fit tee, which goes from small to 2XL. They are a hoot, they look cool, and besides, they'll do what we love to do most here at PR After Hours, start a conversation. The PR After Hours t-shirt is available now on Bonfire. The link is in the show notes, and I hope you'll look into getting one. I not only think they look cool and be great conversation starters, but they'll help us keep the virtual lounge doors open. Thanks so much.